Toyota Lounge for the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. We got all four here talking prospects for the Colorado Avalanche system. Over the top of this, Av system a bit thin. Just being honest, their prospect pool a bit on the thin side. Not to say that there isn't good talent in there, but organizationally, there's not a ton. I want to phrase this in a way, because I don't think this is the worst thing in the world. It's not like the Avs are doomed just because they don't have any prospects, but
it's also not like they have a bad farm system with no picks.
Right. They've got options, but at what point does the Avs cupboards being empty start to become a problem for their current cup aspirations? Because let's be honest, you're mostly using these things to go out and get other pieces to help you push for a cup. Are they out of ammunition already? Is that coming soon? Can they replenish the stocks? Where are they at?
To answer your first question, it's a problem now.
Okay.
You know, you look at everybody's always excited to talk about how great Dallas has been at drafting, and they have been. And you look at how important that has been to them being any good at all.
Yeah.
And you look at all their best players, you know, as they move away from the Sagan, Ben, eventually, you know,
old guys.
Eventually, Pavelski joined them.
Yeah.
And as they move away from that group and into the Heiskanen, Harley, Robertson, Ottinger, like those groups. Now Wyatt Johnston, Stankoven is there. Maverick Bourque will be there.
Yep.
That's all just good drafting. They've kept a lot of their picks, and then they've done really, really well with them. If, you know, when we start talking about the Avs guys, if we felt any level of confidence that the Avs had 5 ELC guys coming up that could help that roster, you feel pretty good about that. Instead, it's like, all right, well, you got to go into free agency. Now you got to hope that somebody wants to play in Colorado.
Yep.
So it's a problem now, honestly, and it doesn't get any better the more you trade picks away. The more you continue to go down that road.
It only gets thinner.
Yeah, I don't even think it's a bad thing that they do that. I'm just saying, when it comes to this aspect of your organization, you have put yourself into a tough spot, and you accept that you've done that.
If you do it enough, you eventually can't do it anymore because you don't have anything left to trade, right? That's the point.
It's a problem right now. Like, I'm reflecting on where they've had success has been in years where they've drafted high and they've had players that were more immediately NHL ready and, you know, their current pieces in the Avs roster. And as they've gotten better, their performance each year has gotten better, and so they've drafted later and later, and they've traded away some picks, and I think the current prospect pool reflects the competitive window that the team is in. So it's not necessarily a bad position to be in because of what it means, but it also means that in the playoffs, when bodies are going down, they don't have as many options to call upon that are familiar with the system because they've been playing within the organization for some time. And I think that level of familiarity cost them just a little bit. I think that was a strength of the Dallas group, and it's hard to compare Dallas because, to AJ's point, they've had a lot of, I don't want to say just luck, but they've had a lot of luck and skill, you know, in having picks hit for them. And with the Avs, it's been different. Like, they have had players that have been taken in later rounds that they've been trying to see if there's NHL upside in. And in addition to, they've dipped into the college free agency aspect, and that's kind of new. Like, we hope that Sam Malinsky will pan out. We don't know what Jason Polin is. But it is intriguing.
Sure we'll get to all those guys later. Yeah.
And I appreciate then the front office's interest in adding back into it. I think that it's there. And I think that it needs to be moving forward too, because especially looking at this last summer with Calum Ritchie and Gulyayev, those are two pieces that absolutely have an NHL future that you want to start not just banking on those two alone, but other players like that coming up through the ranks that you can expect or can hope have NHL upside, that makes sense. I feel like right now the prospect pool is thin, and it is important for them to replenish it a little bit to get back to that level of familiarity that I think helped Dallas in this recent run for them.
It is luck. Let's be real. When you go on a drafting run like that, yes, you're good at what you do. You have to get some credit for being good at it. It's also lucky. If it's all skill, why aren't they also pulling a bunch of guys out of the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds every single year? They're only good at drafting in the first round?
It's a little bit of...
It's luck.
It's mostly luck, but there is some skill there.
Of course.
The Avs are an organization that hasn't hit a late-round pick in 15 years, and that spans 3 different directors of amateur scouting, so it's not like they aren't trying different ways to try and find it. They've gotten unlucky in some sense.
But Makar at 4, you got lucky.
Yeah, for sure.
Mikko Rantanen at 10, you got lucky. It's okay to admit this. It's not like we have to act like drafting is like this, like you peer into this crystal ball and you're just like this genius organization. Organizations will go through stretches and they end up competitive as a result of it. And then they will stop because it's very, very, very hard to do. And a portion of that is because it's luck.
Yep.
I'm not even saying it's all luck. It's just, you have to get lucky. You're right. It is luck.
It doesn't always pan out, like Martin Kaut and Tyson Jost.
Totally.
Like, it doesn't always pan out. And that happens to every organization, though. That's not unique to the Avs, and I don't want to pin that as some kind of failure unique to this organization. Every organization has picks that just don't quite hit the way that you thought they would, and then there's going to be players that surprise you. And I think that's why it's important not for them to neglect drafting players that might fit one day altogether.
And on the whole, I think the Avs organizationally over the past 6, 7, 8 years have done a very good job of drafting in the first round. Are there some not great picks in there? For sure. But yeah, Cale Makar's luck. They still took him. What if they take Cody Glass in that spot?
Yeah.
Look down the line. Even some of the guys that are no longer on the team, they've gotten value out of first-round picks like Alex Newhook, who brought in Ross Colton and picks. They got value out of Justin Barron, who ultimately brought in Arturi Lehkonen, which has worked out fabulously for them.
Drew
Ellison and Manson.
Yep. So
Bowen Byram. Like,
a thin prospect pool doesn't necessarily mean the Avs haven't done a good job, is the way that I would put it.
I also think that they were like, we're not very good at the second, third round thing.
Yeah,
and
so
they
just
started
punted on them. Yeah.
And they've done a really good job is with finding players that are good with those second round picks, because Arturi Lehkonen, Josh Manson, Devon Taves, Andrei Burakovsky, these guys are all acquired with second and third round picks.
Eric, you're on the pro scouting side when you were doing it. How big are those arguments when it comes to the amateur guys coming in and saying, we need these picks, we need to do X, Y, and Z, compared to, no, we need to go get these players now?
No, a bit on both sides. You know what I mean? Yeah, lately it was more pro scouting, and there's always fighting with amateur scouting, and because they think you don't care, because you're looking at trades that are going to help the team now in that playoff run. And then amateur scouting, they've been scouting those guys for years and going through those snowstorms, and it's their babies, and you know what I mean? It's so like, it's almost personal, you know what I mean? And you get rid of them, and it takes them like a little, I'm not making fun of them. I actually admire them, amateur scouts, because it's like you're losing a piece of you, like, you know what I mean? It's almost like you're losing one of your kids, or, and they'll rally, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time, and then they're just like, they'll need a couple drinks at the bar. It's okay, we'll let go of Shattenkirk, or you know what I mean, like, or whatever it is. It's hard, you know what I mean? Because, but then you also because your dream is, on the amateur side, is to see them lift the cup with the jersey and the team, you know, the team that you. It's not as glamorous to say, well, yeah, but the perfect example you just said there was just Barron. Oh, it helped us get Lehkonen, you know what I mean? It's just a different way. They look at it differently. So I think on the management side, it's more you have to see and weigh what makes sense. And, you know, if you look at the Avs last year's trade deadline, didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, they didn't have some assets to do anything they wanted to do, but then maybe they didn't feel that they were at that stage of where this year they felt they were in a better stage to go for it, right? Which we saw that they did. But see, the way I look at it is I've been raised in this game where it's a good thing, actually, to be thin. That means it's because you've been successful. So it's a good thing. Some people look at it like, oh, you know, at the end of the day, and I've seen it so many years and so many times, some teams are basing their success and their swag on, oh, we have 20 draft picks. And it's like, oh, great, awesome. You haven't made the playoffs in 7 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for me, that's what's important. That it means, and if you look at the Avs, don't compare them to anybody else. They've been successful. Look on the last 48 to 72 months. They've brought a championship. They've brought in some good players. So it's not like they were ignorant and stupid, and they actually did it right. It worked one time. This year it didn't work. But I think if they had to do it again, they would do it again the same way. Circumstances led to it didn't work out. Hey, listen, if you if you're doing this every time, no, I mean, there's a saying, right? What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail? Freaking frack, you wouldn't do anything because you wouldn't fail at anything. It's just anybody would do anything and everything works, right? So, so the way I was raised in this game, it's more like it's a good thing. And we used to have a say back then is, if people don't know that, there's an order of the draft tables on the floor, which will be the last time.
Yeah.
Sadly this year, but we used to always have a saying at the start of the year, like, we want to be at the end. You don't want to be at the front tables. That means at the end tables this year is Edmonton and Florida. And that it's a stupid saying, but it's a real saying because perfect. That means we'll have one. And tough shit, we don't get a top 5 pick. You know what I mean? It is what it is. We'll figure it out. And when you have that mentality in management, then you don't get bogged down by all those lists that come out and, oh, friggin' top prospects. No shit. If you've been in there, if you're freaking challenging for the Stanley Cup every year, you're not going to be there in those top lists of freaking top prospects. It just doesn't happen. Yeah. That doesn't mean that aspect of the game is not fun. You know what I mean? Like, it is fun. Like, I know you guys love it, and so do I. You know, I'm just not very good at amateur, scouting compared to, pro scouting. That's more my field, right? But I think those guys are geniuses, and they are the foundation for your team.
Every NHL team goes through cycles, right?
Oh,
there are cycles
100%.
where you're trying to win a cup.
And then there's some guys that their cycle is they've had picks for 25 years. They just don't go anywhere.
Some they struggle to make those cycles be more effective. But even a team like Edmonton, for a decade they were stuck in a prospects only cycle, and now they're in a cup final. They come out of that cycle eventually. Point being, the value of your prospects and your prospect pool does change depending on the situation your organization is in. Now, that isn't to say prospects are meaningless for the Avs. They're actually pretty important because of ELCs and how that works with the salary cap era. Mm-hmm. The Avs are pretty desperate to hit on some of the prospects that we're about to talk about in a minute here. But there are specific things that they're looking to hit on more than an organization like an Anaheim who says, we just want to throw 30 prospects at the wall and see which ones stick. Two very different situations. And again, a thin prospect pool does not mean that the Avs are failing. I would put it that way.
No.
But
we'll talk about it tomorrow, but then if you look at Tampa, they've had some freaking good picks in the late rounds as swings. You know what I mean? Just go to Braden Point or guys like that. You know what I mean? It's been a while. You're right. Like the Avs.
Sorelli was a third,
probably
I think.
Hedgie maybe the last one? Like Hayduke? Late swing,
What?
I'm talking about taking a late swing on someone. You know what I mean? Like,
how late are we talking?
I mean, what was Hedgie?
Fifth? I don't know.
Oh, man.
Gotta be. Anyway, what I'm saying is Tampa did some pretty good freaking late swings in the last 8-10 years. You know what I mean? Where it's paid off for them, you know what I mean, through the salary cap. I'm just using Point, you know what I mean, like guys coming up, or even guys like, who's our guy that we like in Seattle? Yanni Gourde, right? He wasn't a pick. He was a free agent, but still,
Yeah.
those guys pay off. And then when you're in a salary cap crunch, the draft and those things are so important. You know,
Basic.
it is.
Logan O'Connor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Great,
Logan,
great
you know?
call.
Not even a draft pick.
Basically, what Eric was saying earlier is you want to be so far away from the draft stage, you need a Toyota to drive yourself
That's
up to the
right.
stage. Go get yourself into a Toyota at your Front Range Toyota stores, whatever type of vehicle you're looking for. Trucks are built into the Toyota DNA, whether you're looking to get a Toyota Tundra. They also have a hybrid version of it, the Toyota iForce Max Tundra. So if you want to get the hybrid truck, that's an option too. For all the Colorado folks, 17 different models with all-wheel or four-wheel drive, including the Epic 4Runner or the RAV4. Tons of different options there. I'm actually driving up to Estes Park next weekend, so I might need some four-wheel Toyotaing to happen for me. I'm not a huge car guy, but I have been told by a number of the DNVR folks over in the Discord that Toyota also a great place to get performance series cars. I believe it's their GR or GS series, where if you're into things like turbochargers and souping up cars and doing all that fancy stuff, Toyota has tons of options for their cars with that series. So go check out a Toyota at your Front Range dealerships, the official vehicle of DNVR and the official vehicle of the Colorado Avalanche. You can find them at your Front Range Toyota dealerships, including AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corbin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Also brought to you by the folks who bring you the most unique Colorado-themed sports bets out there, ClutchBet. Go get with ClutchBet today. Use the code DNVR250 when you sign up. One, it lets them know we sent you over there. Two, when you sign up with the DNVR250 code, you get a 100% first bet match up to $250 paid in bonus bets over your first 5 weeks. They also have a ton of other amazing deals that you can get in on ClutchBet, not just for Colorado sports, but for just about anything. Cup finals start on Friday. They guarantee insurance on any first goal scorer bets you want to put out there. So whether you think it's going to be Connor McDavid or Sam Reinhart or anybody else, go throw a bet down, get it insured, because ClutchBet does that for you. Download the ClutchBet Sportsbook app today with code DNVR250 and be sure to keep an eye out for other great promotions and offers on the Rockies, Broncos, and more for Denver sports. Must be 21 or older, physically located in the state of Colorado. Gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you or someone you know needs help. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Let's actually get into the Avs prospect pool here, starting with the 2023 draft. I don't think it is too out of left field for me to say Cal Ritchie pretty definitively the number one Avs prospect at this point.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's fair.
Is Eustace Sonnen a prospect still?
I would say no.
That's great. Then he's graduated.
Yeah, I think he's graduated.
Can count it
at
as
this
a
point.
win.
Yep, for sure. Ritchie, an 80 points in 50 games regular season, 30 points in 21 playoff games in Oshawa in the OHL. A dominant year once he came back and was healthy from the shoulder that he was rehabbing. I certainly feel better about him than I did on draft day. We've talked a little bit about him before. Realistically, probably not going to make the Avs lineup this coming season. But never say never. I mean, is Ritchie a guy you guys expect to have impact? I'm going to say in this cup window, not necessarily next year.
Yeah, assuming the cup window is, we'll just generously say the rest of this Makar contract.
Sure.
Yeah, I think he'll be part of the NHL conversation eventually. I just don't think it's next year.
I agree.
I think that their cup window only gets extended the more that they add to their depth, whether that be internally through prospects panning out or just great fits in free agency. I think their window gets extended by those types of things because I still view the ceiling for players like McKinnon and Makar as this thing that can't be qualified just yet. I don't know what that looks like.
Sure.
And with Ritchie, what I think gives me so much hope for his NHL future that I'm not counting on panning out in the next year, but soon, is how hard he battles among his peers. Understandably, he is in an age group where he's not necessarily playing among men, but he outmuscles his opponents at that stage. So he's ready for the next stage. He's ready to see what he is like up against stiffer competition in that right. Obviously, the offensive production has been there, but he is someone they can rely on their PK, and that kind of edge that he plays with to win some of those battles and hunt for pucks. I think he's ready to see what the next level holds for him. And I wished it could be the American League, at least, to get him against then that stiffer competition that I'm talking about, because he has a little bit of that warrior quality in him. And I think that's going to really fit in well with the Avs in the near future.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing him because we didn't see him, right? Yeah. And this is where, that's just me, meaning I'm not an amateur guy, I'm more a pro guy or management. So for me, I always wait till I see them here. You know what I mean? And last year we didn't see him here, right? You know, because of the injury. And I'm not saying people are wrong to project. That's what the draft is. You're drafting on projection. That's what you're doing, right? So you just gotta, hope for the best. You hope that things turn out good from age 17, 18, whenever they get drafted, until you usually get your hands on them as pro. Money changes things from some guys where you didn't project that. It does become a factor. They become different people when they sign a contract and money gets involved. They go through things and all of a sudden it's not the same play. I just, again, call me stupid. That's for another show, but I wish, because I'm older, the draft would go back to 20-year-olds. You know what I mean? And I know people are going to I'm going to catch flack for this. It's okay.
I agree.
Again, you talk to people and it's so weird. People agree, people disagree, and I get all both sides, But I just think that you're so young at those ages, and I'm looking forward to Ritchie, to seeing him, what he can do this upcoming training camp. First of all, how you react to being there, to being around McKinnon and Makar and playing next preseason games against Heiskanen, and how do you fare? You know what I mean? Because a lot of guys fare well in juniors and they just can't fare well, and they just can't adjust. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying that's what I'm looking forward to. I want to see how he does. I want to see how he interacts. I want to see how he, it's easy to be the kingpin in juniors because you're playing against 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, and you know what I mean? But you get to this level, and this is not being negative by any means, because I do believe it. I'm hoping he's going to do well. Again, I want to see him here, but I've seen it all where some guys are second, third overall. They can't play. They can't adjust. They can't play, and they end up not playing. You know what I mean? So, but if you're going purely on Avs prospects, I would say that that's probably the number one guy, right? On what you see and what we're all projecting that, he can be. Like I said, I think it's exciting. I think he'll be excited, especially after 2 years, missing a training camp. It's not the same thing sitting on the sidelines, having a water and, just kind of gaining experience. You're really not gaining the experience until you're out there.
I think it goes back to Megan's point, though, because whatever you project Ritchie as, when it comes to this cup window, let's be honest, McKinnon's the 1C. Middlestat is now the 2C for the foreseeable future, and Colton's in your 3C spot. And the rest of your top six is relatively full. So when you look at Ritchie having some of those signs as a guy that you believe can function in an NHL bottom six, that's more what gives him his immediate opportunity. And then, as the years go on, if he develops into more, awesome. But
skill takes over.
Yeah, exactly.
There's guys, I forgot the expression we used to take all the time. It's more like, I'll do it, guys. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
Ryan O'Reilly was one of those. Whatever you need, I'll do it. And Ryan, if you look at his path, and I dare you to look it up right now, I don't think he scored freaking 20 goals in juniors. I don't think he scored 20 goals in the OHL. Like, I'm telling you right now, look it up. Maybe I'm wrong. And this guy played in the NHL at 18, but I'll do it. Why? Because he's on the World Juniors, or he's in the U18 tournament in the summer, and they need a shutdown guy. I'll do it. Why? Because he's smart enough. and you can not reinvent because you're 17, 18 years old, but you can play all those different roles. And Ryan was always put in a secondary role. And I'll tell you a funny story about Ryan. I don't know if I ever told you, but he played here at 18, and it was a tough year. And then remember, it was a tough finish, and I was in Gabe in Kitchener, watching Gabe, for the obviously Nugent Hopkins and Gabe. That was all of a sudden I was on a few weeks just looking at all those guys just to familiarize yourself with these guys. And I remember being in Kitchener, and the season was almost over for the Avalanche, and Ryan had been one of those 18-year-olds and killing penalties, and Steve Spott, assistant coach for Dallas, was coaching in Kitchener at the time, and he said, "Can I tell you something?" I said, "What?" He says, "I've coached Ryan always in those freaking U16 and U17, those tournaments." He goes, "He's a power play guy." And we were shocked because we were like, "What? Ryan O'Reilly's a power play guy?" No, he's not. We have Matt Duchesne as an 18-year-old. Ryan's he's a PK guy. He's a smart guy. He's a third, fourth line center. And then we came back, and I remember sitting with Joe, and I'm like, "Joe, you got to try him." Like, I guess he's a freaking power play guy. Like, holy shit, this guy's got a Conn Smythe. You know what I mean? I'm not saying because of us. I'm saying you peg hole guys, right? You pigeonhole guys into what you think they are. And Ritchie, if he can if he can not invent, but play different types of roles. Evolve. You have to evolve, especially at the start sometimes, because he's not going to San Jose. No disrespect to San Jose, a bottom team. He's going to a team that aspires to the championship every year, right? Yeah. So you have to be able to, and some guys sometimes are stubborn, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And you can't be stubborn, but if he's smart enough and he can figure out, and maybe there's a way he stacks. Again, maybe he's not ready physically. I mean, time will tell. We don't know until he's put in there, right? Put in the soup and let's freaking go. But if you can just all of a sudden have different types of skill sets, and usually when you're a first-round pick, and they took a chance on him, of course, because of the injury, and that's why he slipped a little further, right? Than people would have anticipated. But if he can just go and try to, figure it out, you know what I mean? And sometimes you need a coach to trust you to do that, right? Is Jared Bednar the guy that's going to want? I don't know. You don't know what else is at his, in front of him, Bednar, to make the roster, work. So we'll see.
You're right by the skin of your teeth, by the way.
Is it 19?
19.
I swear. But people would think like, oh, this guy scored 80 goals in juniors. No, he didn't. Like, he's just a smart player. And I'll do it. Yeah, coach, I'll do it. Yeah, we need a guy to take face-offs and shadow. I'll do it. You know.
That's what I like about Ritchie's last year is you see guys in junior, come from junior, jump to the pros, whether it starts at the American League or NHL, and they have to, using Eric's word, kind of reinvent their game depending on the role that's available to them.
Yep.
But seeing Ritchie pour into his two-way game in juniors, be a PK and PP1 guy, I think makes him multidimensional. And that just kind of gets him a step ahead in the process of being what he'll need to be at the next level. And seeing that willingness, too, in juniors when he probably... He is that guy, he's putting up the numbers to be that guy, but he's also more than that. And I think having the wherewithal and maturity to recognize that he can also pour into these other parts of his game that might be considered a bit more blue collar, especially when in juniors and that skill level just takes over. You could just be that. He's allowing himself to be more dimensional. And I think that's going to fit really well in the Avs organization in the near future. I think they're going to reward that because he's going to have to be more than just the skill guy from juniors.
Yep, agreed. I think he's the most exciting prospect in the Avs system at the moment. That isn't to say there aren't other exciting pieces, which we'll get to in a minute. But first, how'd your guys' houses do with that hailstorm the other day? Was it bad here? I'm out east, so it's always bad for me. But good.
I'm in an apartment.
Oh, so you're who cares if that thing
Remember
falls
I
apart?
took the shuttle. I was going to the airport. Oh, my God.
That's a scary...
It was unbelievable.
That's scary.
I'm being honest. I forgot to tell you. Like, Jill, me, and the kids, and we're sitting in there. I've never been through anything like this on freaking 470. It was unbelievable. And one of them, it stopped. And then there was one, like maybe a minute later, it was just a single one. And I felt like a freaking boulder dropped on the top of the freaking van. Red hot roof. I'm sure
Yep.
I've gotten a lot of calls.
Apparently, the most damaging hailstorm since 2017.
Oh, I can see it. It was. I'm telling you, I was dead smack in. It was unreal.
It was keeping me and my wife up. We were up until like 1 a.m. just listening to bombs drop on our roof. So,
I took the red eye. Remember? So it was like
Yeah.
late. It was unbelievable.
well, look, obviously you can't control the weather, but you can control your roof with Red Hawk Roofing. So make sure you get with them after a storm like that. The coolest part about Red Hawk Roofing is they can come out and inspect your roof for free. No obligations, nothing required from you. Just have them come out. They'll go up on your roof. They'll take in-depth photo reports of your entire roof. They'll let you know not just how your shingles and stuff are up there, but your gutters, your siding, all of that good stuff. Red Hawk Roofing will take care of it for you with their inspection. So clearly hail season has arrived in Colorado. Make sure you get with Red Hawk. Of course, from the ground, it's hard to see how bad the damage is sometimes. It's why they go up on the roof and make sure everything is all good up there. Support your local teams, and that means supporting Red Hawk Roofing, a local company just like us here at DNVR. If you're looking for a new roof over your home or business, go ahead and check out Red Hawk Roofing at redhawkroofing.com or call 720-771-8921 and tell them DNVR sent you. And once you got your Red Hawk Roofing new roof going up on there, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Go take yourself a pit stop into Raising Cane's. Get yourself some delicious chicken fingers. This podcast, not a big coleslaw podcast, so just get double sauce instead. That's the solution we've found at Raising Cane's. Go get with them if you haven't checked out. I don't know how to say that. If you haven't gotten to a Raising Cane's yet, you got to go get to it. I know a lot of places they're not really familiar with Raising Cane's if you're not from the local area, but delicious stuff. Their chicken fingers, made to order, battered up deliciously for you. The sauce to die for. If you've never had their sauce, even if it's not your favorite thing, it's something you got to do once in your life. I'm telling you. For cooked to order, hand-battered chicken fingers, race into Raising Cane's today. Turbocharge your chicken fingers and get them even faster by ordering online at raisingcanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, the other first-round pick from last year's draft for the Avalanche, Mikhail Gulyayev, Russian kid, played the full season in the KHL as a defenseman, only had 12 points in the regular season, which I think is probably a little bit on the low end, maybe even a bit disappointing for a guy that is projected as a high-octane offensive defenseman. But at the same time, for an 18-year-old to play a full season in the KHL is not very common at all. So he's a guy I was very excited about in his draft year and still a guy that I'm excited about. And the path is a little bit longer, right? We know at minimum he has another 2 years in Russia based on his contract. Or does he? Based on all the Michkov stuff happening this offseason, who knows how solid any of those contracts are. But for Gulyayev, same question, I guess. Let's start with as Ritchie. Do you see him as having an impact in this cup window, or do you think it maybe kind of comes in the next phase for Colorado?
He's a tougher one, just, again, because you might not see him for 2 or 3 more years, and I mean in the NHL.
Sure.
Because say he comes over the pond in 2 years, he might still be in the AHL for a year.
Yep.
Now, those guys typically aren't going to want to come across to North America to play in the AHL very much. We know that Nikolai Kovalenko is like, no. You can understand that. You're making good money. You're playing all the time. You have a role. You're coming over to play in the NHL. And that's, with Gulyayev, that's one of the things that I will be kind of on guard about until he suits up for the Avs.
Yep.
I feel more and more like he's just a Sam Girard clone. I don't think he's ever going to be an offensive defenseman, despite his skating acumen.
Sure.
I think he can use it in the same way that Girard does. Escape the zone, controlled.
Get pucks going the right direction.
Yeah, controlled
type
zone
guy,
exits,
yeah.
controlled zone entries. But the creativity and the skill in the offensive zone are they're okay. I'm not wowed by them. I'm not like, oh my god, this guy's gonna be incredible.
I have
but
a little more faith in that.
I
He
really
doesn't have a shot though, for sure.
And I don't like Sam Girard's a 30-point guy.
Yeah, right.
Like multiple years in the NHL has had 30-point seasons.
You would take that of Gulyayev in a heartbeat. That's
yeah,
not a
yeah. You could easily see Gulyayev on your second pairing doing the same job.
Mm-hmm.
He's a better skater than Girard, which is fun to say because Girard's a
pretty
great
darn
skater.
good. Yeah.
Gulyayev is more explosive.
Yep.
He's got that speed.
Which great for the Avs system.
Yeah. Assuming Jared Bednar's still the head coach.
Well,
for right now, yeah, you have to love his fit projecting forward, but it's still like it's going to be a while.
for sure.
And at least for me, I'm not dreaming on him being a top pairing guy.
I wouldn't either.
But it is really encouraging that he spent the entire season in the KHL. So that, I think, alone is like, hey, he's getting responsibility in a league that doesn't like to give it to teenagers.
Yep.
And on a blue line, when at forwards, sometimes guys will end up on the fifth line out there playing 4 minutes a night where you're just like, what is the point of this?
Yeah. He was playing real minutes.
Yeah.
Averaging, I think it was like 14-30.
Yeah, like it's not overwhelming, but again, it's a teenager in I would say the third best league in the world, but there are some people that'll tell you second. So either way, it's a really good men's league. It's a really good pro league.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of kids in it, so for him to do what he's doing is certainly encouraging.
Especially, I don't know if people realize it's his first full season ever in the KHL.
Yeah.
So I think that is an accomplishment in its own right. And we are fortunate to have seen him in person in development camp. And that's sort of where we can speak to the explosiveness of his skating. And I think to give us some credit, too, that makes it a little easier to talk about
Yeah, for sure.
what we project his fit might be. I think what makes his future fit or path a little more challenging to project is question marks around players that are already in the system ahead of him, the Malinsky and the Barons. What becomes of them, especially because kind of a similar profile in those players. That's a bit dramatic because I do think Gulyayev's skating makes him different from those players too, but I think maybe Barron's IQ separates him from Gulyayev, at least where he's at right now. And those things I think will help better determine what and when Gulyayev comes over and what he's going to be. Because I think, Avs learned a lesson with Jaravalov in having a player come over from the KHL to the American League. It just didn't quite pan out. And I think to AJ's point, when he does come over, Gulyayev that is, it's got to be a little bit more of a sure thing. So his role needs to be a little bit clearer. And you want Barons and Malinsky to work out too. That just means options. So I think that's where it gets a little harder to say when he comes, but the skills that was teased just so young definitely points to an NHL future with Gulyayev.
I think it's just, for me with him, it's more nothing wrong with the nationality, but we all know that the Russian Federation, it's just different. It's different with their path, and it's all different. Like every case is different. Just ask Philly, right? There's so many. They have different cases and different players and different path. And this is how it was done, and this one was done this way. So I think for me with him, it's going to be. It's such a culture shock, like it is, and I like when a player like that stays over there longer, is more mature, and when he does come over, they're more ready for it. On the flip side of things, just take Big Z for example. Like if they've been here in North America in juniors, you know what I mean? It makes it a little different because they've adapted a little easier, and their teenage years to adult years are here. Where if they're in their native country, it's a little different. Like you said, Kovalenko, or I'm just gonna stick around here. You know what I mean? Which I like that better. And then when they come, they're ready to go. You know what I mean? And But then again, the path is, how is it going to be? I don't know. And, everybody's different in their contracts with the Russian Federation. And, he sure sounds like,
There's a different work ethic there, right? I know there were a lot of stories about Mikhail Grigorenko. When he was drafted, he worked really, really hard on his English in those first, I think it was his first 2 years. And then he came over, when he came over, he was completely fluent.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, all right. So
he played in Quebec for Pat.
The American transition was easy for him, even if his NHL career ended up being what it was being. But you see a lot of Russians who don't have that work ethic off the ice, and they struggle to integrate into. And
I'm not comparing nationalities, but Swedes usually, I don't know why, like in Finns, Swedes, they just adapt easier, than sometimes parts of Russia, the culture. Hey, listen, I've seen it and I've heard it. A lot of guys that have left, from the NHL to go play in Russia, and then they have a hard time because and then they're like, oh my God, I realize it now, like how hard it was for the guys I used to play with, because I don't speak Russian, like the guy, I'm in an apartment, my wife's not here, I'm by myself, and he's like, they're like, I couldn't adapt, and I came home, and, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's hard, the cultures and the lifestyle and the way the hockey's played and the way here it's, they don't like it when they're sent down to the American League, you know what I mean? Like, when I say they, I'm talking about a person that can stay home and make some money and become a better player too, and then they're like, oh, I'll go over there, but I'll stay up, and next thing you know, that guy in Columbus this year, I forgot his name, but he was all PO'd, and you know what I mean, like because he was sent down, and freaking forgot his name. But
you're a chick. I mean, he's not Russian, but
coming from overseas, right? Isn't he overseas?
I forget that.
It doesn't matter.
If he's the wrong guy, but anyone, they come over, and then it becomes a moot point. Like it becomes a PO point between the agent, the organization, the player. So I think for me, if this guy, again, I've never seen, development camp, like I remember same 2 years ago, right? It is what it is, development camp. You're not really in the environment of a real training
different than
camp.
game situations.
Yeah. Sure. It's fun to see what the asset looks like and everything. But I think this guy, I can see him being more on the part 2 of what you were saying earlier, of the Makar, window. It's, I can see it being a little bit further down the road.
A lot of the guys that are on the team right now probably won't be around when he's ready to get here.
Something like that, and again, that's just pure instincts, not, that's where I'm at with him, but he sure sounds like a nice prospect, yeah.
Yeah, so some excitement there. The rest of the Avs unsigned prospect pool, there's not a ton else that you're really looking at as NHL caliber talent. As far as these guys are concerned, I expect most of them won't even end up with NHL deals. One of the ones we have talked about, have found interesting, is Maros Jedlicka. Unfortunately, had a knee injury this year, basically didn't play at all.
Yeah.
I had some exciting stuff early on in rookie camp and stuff like that, but maybe a guy to watch this year as far as what he has as a season.
Bednar liked him.
Yeah.
I think that says a lot. It comes back to how players elect to separate themselves in camp too, when a lot of eyeballs are on them. And Ivan and Jedlicka did a lot of the right things. Mm-hmm. So the injury is unfortunate, but he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I think too, Czech media was teasing that he might switch over to the Swedish Hockey League this upcoming season. I think that'd be a
better league for
environment
sure.
for him. And also, maybe more revealing too into what kind of upside is there. But I thought his camp was really intriguing.
I mean, everything that Ivan accomplished, Jedlicka was doing alongside him. Like, they were both
true.
They were both guys who stood out because their work ethic played.
A little bit of fire plugs, for
yeah,
sure.
And there was enough skill that you were like, okay, these guys are always have the puck. They're always in good situations. They're always making something happen when they're out there. And to me, I thought they were inseparable in terms of trying to compare them and just say, lots of people are really excited about Ivan. They should be just as excited about this guy if he comes back from that knee injury and is the same guy.
Ivan earned a contract, by the way.
As
So,
as a AHL, he was on an AHL deal.
Yep.
Gets an ELC from that. So, Jedlicka was a guy that it was. There were rumblings that the Avs might be considering even giving him an ELC and playing him with the Eagles last year before that injury. This year, it would be wise of them to go play in Sweden, go play a healthy year, and then at the end of the year, if it goes really well, maybe he can come over and join the Eagles at the end of the season, something like that. Sign one of the ATOs and then have his ELC start the next year. Like that's a plausible path for him. But for right now, it's just be healthy.
Yep.
Here's what I'll say about him too. I don't work for a team anymore, so you don't get those personal interactions with them. Going to dinner and and getting to know them. When I ran into him at Family Sports in the parking lot, and he was looking for an Uber, and I don't remember. We ended up giving him a ride, but nice kid, like a sponge, just wants to learn, wants to get better, and that is so infectious when you have that open mentality because it translates to your game. Especially from the European game to the North American game, you know what I mean? Like, and this guy's like, I think he looks like he wants to learn, and he looks like a great kid, and that's always a plus. If I'd be sitting here and telling you that he's an a-hole, you know what I mean, then that wouldn't be good, you know what I mean? Because I always tell kids, you don't know who's watching, you don't know who you're running into, you don't know who you're sitting next to at the restaurant, So I was really impressed by him, and it was fun to just kind of interact with him a little bit, and now you get to follow him a little bit more, because then you're like, you're a nice kid.
We'll see what's next. All right. The rest of the unsigned prospect pool, at best, it's someone like Chris Romain who's still potentially 4 years away from potentially signing a deal.
Yeah.
And at worst, it's guys like Colby Ambrosio whose rights will expire in August, and it does not look like he'll earn a
If they were
contract.
going to sign him, they would have done it. Yeah.
And so,
Which stinks because him and Gulyayev really hit it off. Like,
did they really?
yeah, they didn't speak the same language, obviously, but they found a way to communicate.
I really liked Ambrosio as a draft pick. He just never quite took that next step in NCAA hockey, unfortunately.
And he transferred.
Yep.
He went on the portal. I don't know if he found the place, though.
I'm pretty sure he did, but I don't.
think
I mean,
he
it just
did,
doesn't matter.
And I don't want to
Yeah.
say out loud because then I'm really wrong. And
But I know he entered the portal. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just
See
couldn't
where he's
take that
at.
next step into a top 6 role in NCAA.
Miami of Ohio?
Sure.
It's not a bad place to land.
Yeah. Nothing but the best for him.
They're just it was just hard. Like there were
Where
so
did he
much
play in the
center
USHL?
depth
Tri-City.
That's why.
in Boston.
That's the new coach, Miami of Ohio.
There you go.
See, it's always a connection.
I liked
for-
his energy.
For Avs signed prospects, really only one goalie prospect, Trent Miner. We've talked about him before. Expectation is that he should have at least a semi-permanent role in the AHL this year. He's taken steps forward. Will he ever have NHL impact? We'll see.
It's still trending up for him, though. And
It has
that's-
moved in the right direction.
for
sure.
a 7th round goaltender, like it's been slow, but as long as it keeps moving
As
forward,
long as the needle moves.
yeah, you're feeling like, hey, there's always that opportunity. We'll see.
And in goalie years, 23 is like what?
Yeah,
18,
18.
19.
Yeah, like 18 or 19 for a skater, definitely.
Signed defensive prospects. Rather, let's start with the ones that are not yet signed for next year. Corey Schooneman, Nathan Klerman, both UFAs, and then Gianni Fairbrother and Wyatt Amat, both RFAs. The only one I really would expect back of them is Amat.
AJ, he had his hand for him too. I was like, let's.
I'm
let's slow
mostly
down.
in terms of
Slow
NHL
down,
impact,
slow
but
down.
yeah.
No, that's fair. And honestly, like even if the Klerman conversation, 6th round pick? He's a,
It was a 6th year.
It was 6th, and it was
Yeah.
like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
He had such a long path.
it's to just demonstrate American League
Yep.
talent, and that's not. I actually kind of consider it a win for like being a 6th round pick to carve out at least an American League career. I think is something he should be proud of, and I don't know that the Eagles, because they've got a lot of options with D to consider. They didn't sign Swart, so like
Yeah.
they have even more to consider, I guess. But I like Wyatt Amat a lot, so I think the Eagles would he's an energy guy. He's a glue guy. So I think they'd be interested in him, at least for the American League. I know we're talking NHL upside, but
He's an RFA, so the Avs can keep him if they want. We'll put it that way. Actual prospects, I'm not counting Jack Ashawn. He's 27. Sam Malinsky, I'm not really counting either. He played a bunch of NHL games this year. I don't think you can really consider him a prospect, but certainly a guy you're expecting to be in the conversation for a lineup spot for the Avs next year.
Certainly not a traditional prospect.
Yeah.
What, 20? He's going to be 26 soon?
25 right now. I don't know when his birthday
he's
is.
an August birthday.
There you go.
So, soon to be 26, played NHL games. He should just be in the NHL next year.
And then the two real signed defensive prospects, Sage Weinstein, the guy they signed out of camp last year, probably going to go back to juniors again this year, I would expect, and we'll revisit that conversation next season. And then, of course, Sean Behrens, the new shiny signed defensive prospect. Going to jump in. I don't really see a path to him starting this year in the NHL. My real expectation is he's going to need at least one full year of AHL time, but certainly the most encouraging D prospect at very least for Colorado. What do you guys see in Behrens for this coming season?
For what it's worth, I'm so excited about Sean Behrens, but I don't see the immediate NHL fit. And that's because this is a player who had to get his body right. And finally, in his junior year, he has a procedure in the offseason, entering the season, plays his first full year of college hockey.
Yep.
As we know, there aren't that many games, too. But he plays his first full season healthy, and he has his most productive season yet. And I think he gets overlooked, too, because there's a lot, there's Zeev Buyev on DU's blue line.
Dude, about to go top 10.
Lots of shiny new toys for DU on the blue line. But Sean Behrens still had a really productive year, best of his college career, in his final season at DU. But I think what stood out the most was the defensive growth of his game. And I do feel like they were kind of, like we were talking about with Calum Ritchie being multidimensional, I think they wanted Sean Behrens to become a more well-rounded defenseman by leading into the defensive side of his game. He wins Best Defensive Player of the Year. He's relied on heavily for the PK. And Zeev Buyev credits his growth defensively to Sean Behrens. Unprompted, I didn't make him say that. And so I think that what's exciting then is you obviously have this player with this offensive gift because he's a very smart player in both ends. And so when he walks the blue line, he has a vision in the offensive zone that sees offensive opportunities that he can help to create. But defensively, he's become so much more reliable, making better reads in his own end that I'm still looking to see him play another full, healthy season in the American League now that he's got his body right, because the size has been the question mark around Behrens. How does that translate to the pro level? There are smaller players who can still have incredible NHL careers. I do not want to hold that against him. There's just a little bit he still has to prove, and I think that comes about by playing a full, healthy season in the American League and demonstrating that he can take that high hockey IQ, translate it to the American League game first, because there is going to be getting adjusted to that pace. It's going to be a lot quicker. And then, of course, the ramped up physicality and just seeing how well he weathers contact when he's playing against opponents who are a lot bigger than him. And then I think with a full year of the American League under his belt, we could start having the NHL conversation with Sean Behrens. I think a full year in the HL will do him good because he can get elevated role too. If he can climb the ranks of the back end on the Eagles, that by itself will be a really impressive feat for Sean Behrens.
Yep. This has happened for a couple of years, I think, for the Avs defensive prospect pool, where you end up looking at their D core with the Colorado Eagles, and it's pretty easy to see, hey, there's one prospect that you really think might have NHL upside, and there's no reason that guy shouldn't have every opportunity to earn as much as possible with the Colorado Eagles, and that gets to be Sean Behrens this coming season.
Try all kinds of things.
Yep.
PK, 100%. I think that for what he should be in the NHL one day, he is going to need to PK. I think that's just part of it. Yep. And the other part, though, is give him some power play minutes and have him play on his offside there and see how it goes too. Just see what you have in him at that level and describe the HL as a laboratory. Use it. See what Sean Behrens can be at that level.
You're drafted by a team who employs a mid-20s Cale Makar. You're not playing the power play in the NHL. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
You better learn how to PK.
But yeah, let him do it in the American League. Have some fun.
Sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, that's the guy I said about Ritchie. He's never been here. I understand development camp. He's never had a real training camp. He's never been because of the NCAA rules that, so he comes in a few years later, should be more mature. Has never been at a rookie camp. You know what I mean? I think playing a few games at the end of the year really helps. I went through it, which is very nice because it does help you out going into your first training camp. And there's some expectations on your head too. People want winners. Do you want a national championship? And that's
Twice.
Right? Twice. He did twice, yeah. So he knows what it's like. So people, Bednar company, coaches, Prater, they want to see that. They want to see the way you react to things. And it's all about when you're transitioning from college or American League to the NHL, is how quickly can you adapt to the pace of the league, and how quickly can you get your reads right. And some guys never adapt, and that's why they don't play. And some guys do, and they adapt quickly, and some adapt more quickly than others. I think he can skate. He seems to have a nice head on his shoulder, and there is a size element that you'll have to figure out. Guys are a lot friggin' bigger in the NHL than they are in college hockey or junior hockey. And on top of it, the one thing that impressed me when I saw him, especially in high pressure situations like Final Four there, live watching it in the building is, and that's one aspect that people don't realize about his game is this guy can be physical. He can surprise you and kill guys at center ice, and that's an art. When I say, kill, he's a good open ice hitter, and that's an art. And now, can he do that at the NHL level? Like, I'm assuming he would. There's no reason why I wouldn't think so. But I've seen a lot of guys in college hockey, they're full cage and there's no fighting, and all of a sudden you get to the NHL and you're not the same player because you're afraid a little bit of the physicality because you might have to have a confrontation. I don't see that with him. I think if you talk to people and his teammates, they do say that he is a ballsy kid and he's got drive, and so that's kind of exciting to see. But I'm looking forward to seeing a guy like that because he's more ready than whoever they're going to draft next week. Or not next week, but whatever, a few weeks from now. Let's say it's a defenseman at 24, whatever it is. This is a guy that can be ready sooner rather than later. So that's why I like that prospect in the Avs situation.
Quickly, they're signed forward prospects as well. They kind of break up into two categories. We already talked about Ivan, but you have the college free agent guys, Pavel, Poland. I kind of throw Matt Steinberg in there, even though he is an Avs draft pick. And then you have the Oscar Olausson and Jean-Luc Foudy draft picks from the Avs that both have played at least a couple of NHL games. I think it'll be interesting. The Avs seemed like they really liked Jason Poland last year. He's an RFA. They can extend him if they want to. And then the question of what did they do with Oscar Olausson and Jean-Luc Foudy? At a certain point, it feels like if they're not going to graduate to the Avs NHL system, do you start to look to get value out of them? How much value do they even really have? Probably not a ton, as every organization has guys like those. I don't know. Where do you guys sit on the Avs prospect pool for forwards?
They're both really young. They've been in the AHL for a long time because they both got there really, really quickly.
Yep.
We don't really have time to get too in-depth on these guys. We spent way too much time on Maros, Jedlicka.
Sorry.
We all did this.
Yeah.
Really, I think both are going to be training camp guys to keep an eye on. And
see if they can earn something.
Yeah, and I think they're both going to be in mix for roster spots next year. It's going to be hard for both of them because they're not natural fits in the checking roles, but they both have elements that would play well with how the Avalanche like to play.
True.
So they're both really good skaters. Olasson's bigger. Foudy's better with the puck. I would say a smarter player.
Yep.
But there are, and Olausson's a better goal scorer. So pros and cons to each of their games, but those are definitely guys that in the preseason, that's like, this is it. Let's see. C-Mac said one of these guys has to kick down a door. That's it. He has to one of them has to kick down a door.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We didn't spend as much time as the other guy. The other guys are unknowns. These guys are known now in the sense that they've been around. They've been to many camps. They've been in the American League. They've been down the street. You just nailed it right on the freaking button right there. Now it's up to you this summer to figure out and come to training camp and how do I knock that door down and how do I make C-Mac call me over with Bednar and say, you're starting the season here. There's a way to do that. You just have to want to do it. And you have to figure out, where do I jump in the nest? Where's my role in that nest? And you'll be willing to do whatever. Remember I said earlier, Ryan O'Reilly, I'll do it. There's a lot of guys that don't say I'll do it. They're like, that's not what I am. I'm more like a skill center. It just doesn't work that way. I'll do it. You want to be an I'll do it guy? You have a chance to make it. If not, you won't make it. I'm just being honest because it just doesn't work that way.
All right. We'll probably have a deeper dive on the Olausen and Foodie conversation later on in the offseason. So
it will be guys that we'll be talking about all offseason and into the preseason as well. So
we'll talk more about them later. For the rest of the week, keep your eyes peeled here tomorrow. If you're interested in some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of how the draft really works, you're going to want to tune in. Eric's going to take us to school on it. Tell us how things really go. And then Friday, if you're a DU fan, we were already talking about it. Going to be a cool show. Celebrating the DU championship and a special guest on Friday.
Probably talk a little more about Sean Behrens.
It's not Sean Behrens.
If it was Sean Behrens, I'd be like, it's Sean Behrens, by the way.
But it is a national champion.
It is a national champion, so it should be fun. We appreciate all y'all hanging out with us. We will be back tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then.
We all silly like the mayor.